On the morning of the 10th of November 2025, Pokrovsk showed the world why it has become one of the most dangerous square miles in the entire conflict. In recent weeks, a stream of frontline reports and verified footage has exposed a troubling pattern. Russian forces keep trying to reach the city using fast vehicles, narrow roads, and even the cover of heavy fog, yet each attempt collapses almost immediately. Engines stall before they can accelerate. Figures disappear in the haze. Entire movements break apart without warning. Pokrovsk now operates under a different kind of logic, one shaped by precision, patience, and an invisible defensive network that few outsiders fully understand. To see how that network works, we begin on the rooftops where the first line of resistance was waiting. The first major clue that Pokrovsk had turned into a defender's stronghold came from an ambush carried out by an Azov sniper team positioned on the upper floors of several abandoned apartment blocks. These high-rise structures, left empty after years of fighting, offered a wide field of view over service roads stretching along the outskirts of the city. Snipers could watch movement far beyond the residential district and prepare firing angles without exposing their silhouettes. According to assessments by the Institute for the Study of War, elevated positions in urban areas give marksmen a major advantage because they can identify hostile units long before those units understand they have been spotted. This Azov detachment had been waiting for days, following a strict rotation schedule to keep eyes on any approach route that Russian units might try to exploit. Their rifles were positioned behind broken concrete walls, and the team used improvised hides to avoid any thermal signature that drones might detect. From these floors, the shooters could cover hundreds of meters with clear lines of fire, and they could track targets without moving between windows. The location gave them strong concealment and enough height to stay safe from small arms return fire. While the marksmen stayed silent, a small drone team operated nearby, sending real-time footage to the snipers and their spotters. The drone hovered high enough to avoid engine noise echoing through the empty buildings. Its camera followed the narrow dirt paths outside the city, the same routes often used by Russian motorcycle units in recent months. Reports from Reuters note that Russian forces have increasingly used small, fast vehicles to avoid artillery strikes and move between broken infrastructure across Donetsk. This tactic aims to create surprise and reduce the chance of early detection. On this day, the motorcycle group attempted to enter Pokrovsk before sunrise, using speed and the tight road network to their advantage. The convoy moved quickly, weaving through the outskirts with the expectation that low visibility would give them a chance to slip past defensive observers. Motorcycle storm groups rely on rapid acceleration and believe their movement pattern makes it difficult for defenders to target them at long distance. This approach has been used by Russian units in parts of Kharkiv and Luhansk, where open terrain allows sudden bursts of speed to mask direction. However, Pokrovsk did not give them that freedom. The drone operators guiding the Azov snipers had already spotted the convoy minutes earlier and marked their progress on a digital map. The data feed showed the exact moment the motorcycles shifted from open fields onto the narrow service road that led toward Ukrainian positions. The distance to the kill zone had been measured beforehand, and the snipers only needed confirmation that the riders had crossed the final landmark. Once that point was reached, the order to fire came through a simple radio cue. The first shot hit the lead rider, causing the motorcycle to fall sideways and block the path behind it. The sudden crash forced the rest of the group to slow down, breaking their formation. A second round struck another soldier attempting to turn around. Confusion spread through the convoy as the motorcycles behind struggled to avoid the wreckage. Their attempt to escape placed them directly inside the firing lane that the Azov team had established days earlier. Every movement revealed another target, and each shot came from a shooter who had been waiting with a fixed range and a stable firing platform. Within moments, the infiltration plan collapsed. The riders tried to abandon their vehicles, but the location offered no real cover because the buildings around them had open facades and shattered walls. The drone above confirmed the retreat, capturing the scattered motorcycles left along the service road. Similar footage has appeared on open-source channels and was later analyzed by independent researchers who verified the area using satellite mapping tools. The ambush made one fact clear. In Pokrovsk, terrain and preparation mattered more than speed or surprise. The defenders used height, patience, and coordinated surveillance to stop a fast-moving unit before it reached the first Ukrainian trench. This first encounter exposed a deeper truth about mobility on today's battlefield, one that becomes clearer when we examine why speed turned into a fatal weakness. Russian motorcycle units have become a common sight on the Eastern Front, yet their speed often turns into a weakness when they enter areas controlled by long-range rifles and constant drone surveillance. This problem became clear near Pokrovsk, where fast vehicles tried to act as scouting units but ended up exposed the moment they moved into a narrow road network. Military analysts have noted that motorcycles can cross broken ground quickly, but they offer no armor and little protection when targeted from above or from elevated buildings. A report from BBC Defense says these light vehicles are often destroyed by a single well-placed round, especially when the shot hits the engine block or the driver's chest. Russia began increasing its use of motorcycles in late 2024, mainly because they are cheap and easy to replace, and because larger armored vehicles were being lost at a high rate. According to Reuters, Russian forces have struggled with heavy losses in tanks and infantry fighting vehicles, leading units to rely on smaller platforms that do not attract artillery fire as quickly. Motorcycles can move quickly between shell craters and damaged bridges, and they can reach areas where tracked vehicles would be too slow or too loud. However, this advantage only works when the riders can stay out of sight, which rarely happens in contested urban zones. Another reason for the rise in motorcycle groups is the need to avoid large UAVs. Big drones with fixed wings or large rotors can detect armored columns from far away, so Russian squads choose vehicles that blend into the environment more easily. A motorcycle generates less heat than a tank, so it is harder for long-range sensors to lock onto it. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, noted that Russian soldiers see these bikes as tools for low-signature movement, especially in early morning fog or late evening shadows. Although these units move quickly, they struggle to survive when the defenders have prepared firing lanes using snipers and spotters. A motorcycle cannot return accurate fire while moving, and the rider has no protection from high-caliber bullets. Even a single impact on the fuel tank or front fork can cause an instant crash. Snipers can calculate distance and wind speed long before the vehicle arrives, and they only need one open view to neutralize the entire plan. When shots come from upper floors, the rider has no way to understand where the attack began, which eliminates any chance of escape. Drone spotters make the situation even worse because they remove the element of surprise from the motorcycle's approach. A quadcopter flying at medium height can track every turn of the convoy, and its operators can send live updates to snipers waiting on the rooftops. With this support, the marksman can prepare shots at the exact moment the riders cross a fixed point. Videos reviewed by the Institute for the Study of War show that Ukrainian teams often map kill zones days before any enemy unit arrives, creating a system in which speed offers no real protection. Experts in the West agree that motorcycle tactics only work in very specific environments, such as forests or wide fields where units can shift direction quickly and avoid predictable paths. In urban areas like Pokrovsk, the roads limit movement, and the buildings create perfect firing platforms for defenders. A study by the New York Times showed that Russian motorcycle squads performed better in rural sectors of Luhansk, but suffered heavy losses in cities where drones and snipers cooperate closely. The moment a convoy enters a tight corridor with no cover, the advantage of speed disappears, and the riders become exposed targets. Near Pokrovsk, this weakness became obvious as the convoy collapsed within seconds of the first shot. The motorcycles entered the area, hoping to use their mobility to slip past the outer defenses, but the combination of overhead surveillance and planned firing lanes stood against them. The defenders understood the terrain and had watched the groups approach long before the engines were heard. There was no room to accelerate, no safe point to regroup, and no chance to escape once the first rider fell. And just as speed failed on the ground, concealment failed in the sky when a far larger convoy tried to move under the cover of fog. The Russian command believed that a heavy morning fog would hide a reinforcement convoy as it traveled toward Pokrovsk. Yet this assumption fell apart the moment the weather shifted and Ukrainian drones regained visibility over the road. On that morning, thick clouds covered the low ground and gave the impression that vehicles could move through the area without being detected by sensors. According to BBC weather data, fog in this region normally limits thermal detection because cold air collects close to the surface and reduces contrast in infrared signatures. This natural cover encouraged Russian units to move several armored cars, buggies, and support trucks along a rural corridor south of the city. The convoy entered the fog believing that the low visibility would keep them safe from aerial surveillance. Reports from Reuters show that Russian officers have used fog as a natural cloak in past operations when drones were grounded or when operators could not maintain clear lines of sight. This belief comes from the idea that thick moisture in the air can disrupt cameras and thermal optics, reducing the chance of early detection. At first, this approach seemed to work because the long road ahead looked empty and quiet. The situation changed within minutes when the fog began to lift and the outline of each vehicle became visible from above. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone, which had been circling at a higher altitude to avoid the dense air, caught the first signs of the moving column as soon as the sky brightened. Thermal imaging picked up the heat from engines and exhaust pipes, revealing a line of targets stretched across a narrow route. The Institute for the Study of War notes that thermal drones can regain tracking ability as soon as the fog thins, even if the ground remains partly covered. This shift provided the Ukrainian operators with an accurate picture of the convoy's position. Once the column was identified, FPV strike teams prepared to launch in groups. FPV drones, which carry small explosive charges, are often guided by live video feeds and controlled by operators who watch from monitor screens. These drones move very quickly at low altitude, making them ideal for hitting vehicles stuck on tight roads. A New York Times analysis earlier this year explained that Ukrainian units often use coordinated FPV waves to break large columns by destroying the lead and rear vehicles first, trapping the rest in a confined space. That same tactic appeared near Pokrovsk. The Ukrainian drone teams released multiple FPV units, sending them one after another toward the Russian line. The first strike hit a buggy near the front, causing a loud explosion that sent debris across the road. Seconds later, a second FPV drone hit an armored car behind it. These early hits forced the remaining vehicles to slow down, creating a jam that made the entire column easier to target. More drones followed, each guided toward an engine block, a roof panel, or an exposed crew compartment. Drivers attempted to reverse, but the road was too narrow and the smoke from the first blasts blocked their vision. Geolocated footage shared on independent monitoring channels later confirmed that the strike happened exactly where the reconnaissance drone had first spotted the column. Analysts compared the footage with satellite images from platforms like Google Earth and found identical tree lines, damaged fences, and road bends.
Fire!
This verification method has been used repeatedly throughout the war to match real operations with public statements. And it helped confirm that more than a dozen Russian vehicles were destroyed in this short strike window. Another mistake added to the Russian losses. Before the fog lifted, a Russian channel had posted a video showing the convoy moving forward without resistance, claiming that the road toward Pokrovsk was secure. This upload gave analysts extra information about the convoy's direction, spacing, and likely destination. Military experts quoted by Reuters note that such footage often reveals patterns that drones can exploit, because every visible landmark helps with position tracking. In this case, the online post exposed the group's movement plan only moments before the attack. Within minutes, the morning sky above Pokrovsk changed from silent mist to rising smoke as vehicles burned along the roadside. The convoy that had moved with confidence through the fog found itself trapped on a route that offered no protection once drones took control of the air. But the most revealing shift in Pokrovsk was not the destruction of vehicles in the open. It was what happened inside the buildings themselves. Ukrainian drone units reshaped the fighting inside Pokrovsk by sending unmanned aircraft into buildings, turning every room, hallway, and stairwell into a possible strike zone. This shift became clear when footage appeared showing FPV drones flying through shattered windows and door frames before hitting Russian soldiers hiding inside abandoned structures. A report by the Royal United Services Institute explains that small drones now play the same role infantry once did during clearing operations, allowing operators to enter dangerous spaces without risking their own lives. This new method has changed how urban warfare works on the ground. The Ukrainian teams did not rely on a single operator. Instead, they used a coordinated system in which each drone had a unique job. The first aircraft scanned the area using thermal cameras, searching for body heat inside dark rooms. Thermal sensors can detect human presence even behind thin walls or inside smoke-filled spaces, which is why reconnaissance drones often fly ahead of any strike team. According to BBC Defense Analysis, these sensors became more effective as Ukrainian teams gained experience identifying Russian positions from heat patterns alone. The second aircraft focused on opening a path for the attack drone. Sometimes it struck doorways, while at other moments it hit a window frame to break loose debris that blocked the way. This process was important because many buildings near Pokrovsk had collapsed walls or tilted support beams, which made it hard for drones to pass through. Breaking the barrier created a route for the strike drone that followed. Several analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have stated that Ukrainian operators often use 2 or 3 drones in quick sequence, allowing them to clear obstacles without sending infantry into the structure. Once the path was open, the strike drone flew inside. These drones are small, extremely fast, and controlled through a live video feed, giving the pilot a clear view of the interior. In one confirmed case, the strike drone moved down a hallway, made a slight turn, and then detonated near a Russian soldier who tried to hide behind a broken pillar. The explosion was filmed from the drone's onboard camera, which later circulated on social media channels monitored by independent investigators. The New York Times reviewed similar footage in earlier battles and noted that drones can adjust direction mid-flight, giving them an advantage over traditional grenades or anti-personnel rounds. This type of attack created a major psychological effect. Russian soldiers who fled into buildings expected walls to protect them from fire, but drones did not respect those barriers. A Ukrainian officer told Reuters that troops who once trusted reinforced positions now fear any sound of buzzing inside a building, because a drone can appear from anywhere. That fear intensified when a Russian soldier posted a video describing Pokrovsk as a kill zone, speaking in a shaky voice. He complained about the lack of safe shelter and the constant threat of drones entering any room without warning. His message reflected the growing sense of collapse and panic within the units still trapped inside the city. The contrast with older methods of clearing a building is sharp. In the past, capturing a position often required a squad of soldiers, with each person covering a different angle as they moved through the rooms. This approach was slow, dangerous, and expensive in terms of casualties. Now, a few drone operators can complete the same task from a hidden position several blocks away. The drone pilots do not need to enter the structure, and they can repeat the process as many times as necessary. Reports from military analysts at RUSI highlight that this approach explains why Ukrainian forces have been able to hold narrow front lines in cities like Avdiivka and Bakhmut, even when Russian numbers were higher. In Pokrovsk, this method created an environment where no Russian soldier could feel protected. The enemy could try to hide in basements or behind thick concrete, but the defenders used drones to search every interior space, moving from building to building as the battle shifted. This advantage forced Russian troops to move constantly, exposing them to more danger as they attempted to escape the drone threat. And while drones hunted movement above ground, another invisible threat waited below the soil, completing the trap around the city. Ukrainian forces completed the defensive trap around Pokrovsk by building a wide ring of mines that blocked every route into the city. And this system became clear when a Russian tank exploded moments after leaving a covered position. The blast sent shattered metal across the ground, and the smoke revealed that the vehicle had rolled directly onto a mine that had been placed earlier. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War note that Ukraine often uses remote mining, a method in which small drones drop anti-tank devices along likely approach paths, creating hidden danger zones without sending engineers forward. This tactic worked because Russian sappers could not clear the fields safely. Any group that tried to move ahead was tracked by drones, and several were struck before they could complete their task. Reuters has reported that Russian units near Donetsk struggled to maintain steady supply routes due to constant UAV pressure, which forced many groups to stop clearing operations entirely. Inside Pokrovsk, around 300 Russian soldiers remained isolated, short on supplies and under constant surveillance. Ukrainian commanders kept them pinned below the railway line, using drones and mines to wear them down day after day. All these layers, snipers, drones, mines, and control of the railway line, lead to a larger question about what Pokrovsk means for the future of the war. Pokrovsk now shows how a smaller force can break a larger army by using tools that expose every mistake in real time. And each phase of this battle proves that Russia's choices placed its own soldiers in danger. The sniper ambush earlier this month revealed how speed means nothing when drones watch every road, a point supported by battlefield data from the Institute for the Study of War. Minutes later, the failed fog convoy confirmed that concealment cannot protect vehicles once thermal sensors clear the sky, a fact often highlighted in BBC Defense reporting. Inside the city, drones searched buildings and removed any safe position, while remote mines blocked every exit for the 300 Russian troops trapped below the railway line, a situation described in Reuters' frontline updates. This battle shows a future where information, discipline, and precision decide who survives. If you want deeper reports like this, remember to subscribe to Military Force.